From illegal contraband chocolates to explosives hidden in chewing gum, these are 8 harmful candies that have been banned. Kinder Surprise. A popular candy from the brand Ferrero, the Kinder Surprise is a chocolate egg that contains a toy inside. These things are awesome and super popular in Europe. Created by the Italian company to recreate the tradition of adults giving children large chocolate eggs with toys inside, it's easy to see how they became so popular with children. With more than 30 billion Kinder Surprise eggs sold worldwide since the 1970s, it might surprise you to know that they have been banned in certain places. Inside the chocolate egg, there is a yellow plastic capsule that contains a tiny toy, and that's where the problems began. In the year 2000, a family in the United Kingdom who had lost their child to choking on the toy inside the sweets campaigned for the products to be banned from the European Union. The matter was even discussed in the House of Commons, with some saying that there would be a few toys left in the marketplace if they started banning every product that could be swallowed by a child. In the United States, candies that have toys or trinkets embedded inside were banned. Because the toys within the eggs have small parts, the Consumer Product Safety Commission recalled some Kinder Surprise that were illegally brought into the United States. The chocolates and their toys are still legal in Canada and Mexico, but they are illegal to import into the United States. In 2011, US Customs and Border Protection threatened a $300 Canadian dollar fine for a Manitoba resident who was trying to bring an egg across the US border into Minnesota. And in 2012, 2 Seattle men were found to have 6 Kinder eggs in their car after a trip to Vancouver and were warned with a potential fine of $2,500 per egg. Although a different type of chocolate egg now under the Kinder label is being sold in the United States, it does not have the toy surprise inside, which may prevent children from choking on it, but I can't help but think it has taken some of the fun out of this chocolate. But what do you think? Should this toy wrapped in a chocolate shell be banned? Let me know your opinions in the comments below, and while you're there, remember to subscribe if you haven't already. There are lots of great new videos coming out all the time, and you won't want to miss even one. Candy cigarettes. We all know that children shouldn't smoke, but these banned candies were considered a gateway to real cigarettes. Anti-smoking ads may not be as common as they once were, but at one time they were all over television and print media. In an effort to fight against the dangers of smoking, candies that resembled cigarettes were quick to be pulled off the market. Do you remember seeing those chalky, hard candy cigarettes or paper-wrapped bubblegum cigarettes that puffed out white smoke when you blew on them? If you're young, you may not even know that they once existed. How did they become so trendy and then disappear? Candy cigarettes first hit the market in the early 1930s when smoking wasn't seen as such a health concern. But in the 1950s, as health reports started to surface on the dangers of smoking, parents started to get a little suspicious of seeing their kids enjoying candy shaped like cigarettes. Another problem was the packaging and how similar these candies looked to real cigarettes, with some parents worrying it was a slippery slope for kids who might not know the difference between real and fake cigarettes. As a way to try and bypass the ban, some companies removed the name cigarettes from the packaging and instead called them sticks, but by then, it seemed a little too late. They are more hard to find, and some countries like Brazil, Finland, Ireland, and even Saudi Arabia have completely banned the sale of the cigarette candies altogether. Obscene packaging. Another company who got in trouble for the packaging of their candies is Haribo. They make all types of gummies and candies and are very popular around the world, but a controversy arose some years back with this brand and forced them to rethink their marketing. Funny enough, it wasn't necessarily controversy due to what the candy looked like, but instead, the somewhat inappropriate packaging on the boxes. The Mao-Am sour candies for children feature illustrations of various cartoon fruit characters in provocative poses. The lemons, limes, and cherries are all in vibrant, bright colors, which might entice children to pick up the candy. But unfortunately, for overly protective parents, they may find their kids have stumbled upon suggestive packaging that may cause some questions to surface over what is exactly going on between the grinning fruit on this sweet packaging. It's unclear what the next steps will be for this company and their controversial cartoon characters. Pop Rocks spinoff just too tempting. We all heard the urban legend about drinking soda while eating Pop Rocks, but did you know that the same creator for the candy had another controversial sweet in its product line? Also the inventor of Jell-O, Tang, and Cool Whip, General Foods decided to create a spin-off product called Space Dust that was basically Pop Rocks crushed into a fine powder. Unfortunately, it was not just the name that was controversial. Various powdered drugs were becoming very well known and infamous when the candy was launched, and the nickname for one of of those drugs, angel dust, was a little too close for comfort for parents looking to buy their children a sweet treat at the local store. The photograph of the smiling moon man on the front with a twirling, glittering trail of candy also appeared a little suggestive to parents. General Foods later rebranded the product under a new name, Cosmic Candy, to remove the impression that it was selling drugs to children, but the product was eventually discontinued and Cosmic Candy fell into obscurity. They should have kept well aware of what other meanings might have existed for their name for a harmless candy. It's better to be safe than sorry. Black licorice. Get any group of candy lovers together and there's bound to be a debate over whether black licorice is a tasty treat or one that people turn their nose up at. But did you know that black licorice could actually be dangerous? According to the Food and Drug Administration, black licorice can lead to heart arrhythmias and other health problems when people eat too much in one sitting. It takes only 2 ounces of black licorice a day for 2 weeks to make your heart stutter, and apparently the culprit to this problem is a compound called glycyrrhizin, which is what gives the licorice its sweet flavor. Apparently, glycyrrhizin rids the kidneys of their potassium, and low levels of potassium can make the heart beat out of sync or dangerously fast. The compound can also increase salt and water retention, which is a problem for people with heart failure and high blood pressure. Even though licorice was sometimes prescribed in some parts of the world as a treatment for heartburn and viral infections, the FDA continues to believe that it cannot heal anything and instead can tweak the metabolic process of the human body and interfere with the metabolism and other bodily functions. So for those who want to indulge in a little black licorice this Halloween, you might want to make sure you limit your consumption to avoid any nasty side effects. It's way better to be safe and just have it in moderation. Choose a different candy to get your sweet fix if you can. Lychee fruit candy. While some of these bans may seem silly or funny, other dangerous treats have resulted in deadly outbreaks in other parts of the world. In 2013, an investigator moved to a city in India to try to figure out the cause of one of the country's most mysterious outbreaks. For some reason, over the previous years, parents took their children to the hospital like clockwork in mid-May. After the children began having seizures and slipping into comas, in about 40% of the cases, the children also died. Then, every year in July when the monsoon rains came, the outbreaks ended as suddenly as they began. While this tragic wave of mysterious illness continued for a number of years, various reasons for the outbreaks were attributed to heat stroke, infections from animals such as rats or bats, and even pesticides used in local lychee orchards. But for whatever reason, the outbreaks occurred in clusters, with the illness only striking one child in the village and mysteriously often leaving their siblings unaffected. It would take a joint investigation from India's National Center for Disease Control and the India office of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in Atlanta to find the culprit. It turns out that when the children ate the lychee fruit on an empty stomach, it affected them strangely. Most were malnourished and had very low blood sugar levels, so when they ate the fruit, it affected them gravely. After conducting multiple tests on a number of children, they found that there is a toxin in the fruit that led to a very low blood glucose levels. Because the lychee orchards were everywhere, children often ate the fruit when they were unripe and had fallen onto the ground, making it even more deadly when their parents didn't know that they had been eating it. Unfortunately, it took a number of deaths for investigators to pinpoint the cause, but now that they have, young children in the area are encouraged to always eat an evening meal and limit their consumption of the lychees. Luckily, it seems to have curbed the outbreaks. Exploding chewing gum. In 2009, a Ukrainian man with a strange habit of dipping his gum in citric acid died after his jaw was blown off. The chemistry student, named Vladimir, was a student at the Kiev Polytechnic Institute. Apparently, Vlad had a habit of chewing gum and dipping it in the substance while he was working. Why did he consume so much citric acid? It's hard to say, but some folks believe that consuming a lot of it could be healthy for them. While working on his computer one Saturday night, his mother heard the sound of an explosion. After she went to his room, she found her son on the floor with his face bleeding and his jaw blown off. After conducting forensic tests on the piece of gum, researchers found it was laced with an unidentified chemical that was probably an explosive. After finding both a strange substance and citric acid near the young man's body, police officials believe he may have confused the two. He accidentally dipped his gum in explosives as opposed to his citric acid, leading to tragedy. With an affinity for making homemade firecrackers and the wish to become a scientist when he grew up, it seems that young Vladimir was playing with fire that night. Unfortunately, he lost his life for it. This is an important lesson in being very careful, especially around explosives. Candyman. With Halloween coming, the usual warnings of not eating candy from strangers and making sure you check your loot bag before you eat any will be front and center from parents trying to protect their children. But it turns out it is not just a folktale. In the 1970s, a man in Texas ended up a real-life monster doling out tainted candy. After having dinner with friends, Ronald Clark O'Brien, his wife, and their 2 children, Timothy and Elizabeth, headed out for a little trick-or-treating. After visiting a dark house along the route, the children moved on to another house, but not before O'Brien came running up, waving 5 giant pixie sticks in front of the children. Telling them that a group of rich neighbors were distributing the treats, he gave them away to his children as well as the friend's child and to 2 others who rang the doorbell on his house later. Unfortunately, the kids later decided to eat the candy, and when O'Brien heard his child crying for him, he found his son complaining his stomach hurt before he started vomiting. After the boy went limp and later died, an autopsy was conducted and it was found that he had enough cyanide in his body to kill 3 grown men. Investigators examined the pixie sticks and found that someone had opened the tube and replaced the contents with poison. Luckily, the other tubes were recovered before any of the other children ate the contents. Luckily though, police became suspicious of O'Brien's story, and when they looked into his backgrounds, they found that he was $100,000 in debt and had lost his house. It turns out he had been stealing money from his job and had taken out a $60,000 life insurance policy on his children. Police believe that he had planned to kill his kids for the insurance money. Within days of the evidence coming to light, O'Brien was arrested for the murder of his son. Unfortunately, the detective couldn't find the source of the cyanide, but a number of witnesses believe he had mentioned that he had told them he was interested in getting the poison and wondered how much it would take to kill someone. Justice was served and O'Brien was found guilty of murder. He received the death penalty, but that was not the end of the story. Even though he appealed for some 10 years, in 1984 he was set to be executed by lethal injection. But O'Brien wouldn't get away with hiding from the prying eyes of those he had wronged. On the day of his execution, a number of demonstrators stood outside the prison in Halloween masks shouting "Trick or treat" to taunt the despicable killer. What do you think of these various banned candies or dangerous encounters with these treats? Sound off in the comments section with your opinion, or if you have a story of your own. I hope nothing too scary. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, and thanks for watching.